Hey, welcome back to the channel. In today's video, I just wanted to kind of go over this beginner series that I've been wanting to do for a while. Basically, just for anyone new getting into the hobby. There's also some other tips in here that I think could be useful for anyone really who's in the hobby of painting and miniature painting, all that kind of stuff. But I wanted to do kind of a 101 basics and put some of those tips in there as well. But just get right into it. Basically, the first one we're going to start off with is paint. Pretty important video to go over the basics of what we do here in miniature painting. So starting off with basically the theory of what we're going to be talking about with painting, we need to start off with a model or what we're going to paint, whether that be a single model, multiple models, stuff for D&D, stuff for Warhammer, stuff for any tabletop games, miniature games. You need something to paint. That usually normally leads us into what we want it to look like. So that could be a certain chapter of Space Marine or kind of some art out there of what you might want your D&D character to look like. Pretty much self-explanatory. You're going to go out there and figure out what you want your miniature to look like. A lot of great sources for this that lead you into the later points, but social media, there's tons of people posting their artwork out there now. There's also a lot of things we're just, influenced by in pop culture, media, a lot of ways you can get any sort of influence on what you want to paint. If you're going down the social media route, there's a good chance that usually there'll be a video about it or artwork, or you can even reach out to the person, ask them how they did it, which will get you to kind of the next step on how to go about painting this model. Some things are painted in specific styles, ways of painting, brush, airbrush, dry brush. There's all these different terms we use, but basically how you apply the paint to the model to get the finish and look you're looking for. If you're going down the YouTube or social media route, usually you can find a video on how someone did this. It's a great way to start. It's also a great way to learn. A good tip for beginners, you can start off with the basics of straight miniature paints or paints on a palette with a brush, apply them to the areas in base coat in, and basically paint your model that way. A lot of people like to talk about slap chop, which is a term that's been thrown around a lot recently. It's a painting concept that's been forever, since the Middle Ages, I think, Renaissance basically. But it's basically, you're using a grayscale or a colorized grayscale to do a lot of the work for you with your shadows and your highlights, and then you stain over those colors with a type of product, either an ink or a contrast paint. There's a bunch of different things out there to use now. Basically, we're just staining over this pre-work that's quite easy to do, and it gives you a ton of depth and contrast on your models that make them look very good with not a lot of work. And they're very good for beginners because there's not a very low bar to entry. You just need a few different tools and some paints and you can get it done. And there's a lot of simple, easy ways to take it to the next level if you wanted to increase your painting job. So basically, once you figure out how you're going to paint this model, this will drive you to usually what you need to get. If you're going the slap chop route, you're going to need some very specific paints usually. Maybe not the specific color, but more of the product, which would be more of a contrast, a speed paint, an express paint, one step. There's a lot of different products out there now. They're all pretty good. They all have different finishes, different colors, but can't really go wrong with anything in that round. For standard acrylic paints, if you're following along with a guide and you're not looking to spend a ton of money, and you're not like, oh, this guy uses like 6 different 8K paints for like 2 colors on the model. You don't have to do that. Depending on how deep you want to get in, you really only have to get a few paints for the colors you need. You don't need to get a whole range. You don't need to go out there and buy sets. A lot of that's kind of wasted, especially if you're only painting a few models, because you won't touch half those colors. So what I recommend is basically figuring out what colors you actually need, going out there and buying single pots of it. Depending on where you live, will be your access to some of these paints. Citadel, Vallejo, Army Painter, some of the bigger brands you can get pretty much anywhere, but regardless, check out a conversion chart like this on Daka. There's other ones out there too. These are great for when you're actually shopping around for paints. Let's say I can't find corn red, which is a very important paint for some of our Warhammer painting, and I need to figure out what the conversion for this is. I can go to a chart like this, go over to corn red, see carmine red, deep red, all of these different reds here that can be used for corn red, and I can get a pretty good close compatible color without having to go to the Citadel to find it. This also saves you money sometimes. If I go to Vallejo, I usually get a pot for like $2.87 or something, under $3, whereas Citadel I'm usually looking at over $4. So again, maybe pot per pot doesn't make that much of a difference for you, but over a large scale of painting that you might be getting, it can add up. Before we actually paint the models though, we'll need to prime them. There's two ways to go about this. If you have an airbrush, which you probably won't if you're starting out, usually you'll have a surface primer for that, so don't worry about that because most likely you're not using that. We're going to probably be using rattle cans, which are basically spray cans. If you're here in the States, I use Rust-Oleum 2X all the time. It's a great brand. You can get away with just the matte black. It's like a $6 can, I think, $5.99 can, and you'll never need anything else. Of course, there's other products out there as well. You could go through GW, makes their own primer. Colorforge is another hot brand that makes primers. This is the Stavua step. They make color primers. So let's say you're painting Dark Angels, which is a dark green base coat. You can go out there and get Dark Angel green from Citadel or whatever the dark green for Army Painter is, and you can literally paint your whole army through the spray can with one step, which is like 80% of the paint job. So this saves you a lot of time. It's a great way to speed up your paint jobs if you're doing a bunch of models at the same time. But if you're like, hey, I might just paint a few D&D models here and there, starting off with just a straight black primer is a good idea. Very good base, and you can't really go wrong with it. Be careful when you're priming though. Make sure you stand back a little bit. Make sure you get good coverage. You don't want to be too close to the model. You can easily clog up details with a spray can. It happens all the time, so just be careful. If you think you got too close, just be quick and just rinse it. Usually while the paint's still wet, it should come off. When it dries, it will be hard to get off. Very hard indeed to get off. The spray can primer is pretty brutal to get off your models. Finally, just to keep this quick, at the end of your job, a lot of times you'll also want to seal your paint job in. I recommend, I use it every day, Rust-Oleum 2X varnishes, matte, semi-gloss, gloss, whatever one you finish you want to have. I really like sealing my models in with a light coat of varnish. I play with my models. Everything I paint is for tabletop playing. I don't paint really competitive stuff that's going to sit on the shelf. Everything that I do, all the work, all the crazy stuff that I do is meant to be played with. So I'm a big fan of varnishing my stuff because I don't want my customers or myself to scratch off any of the hard work that I did. So something like this, again, $6 can of Rust-Oleum 2X. It's great. And again, just give yourself a nice wide berth, give it a nice light coating on top. It'll lock in everything you did beforehand, and just make sure you want the finish. Matte's matte, semi-gloss, or satin, depending on kind of what you want your finish to be like. Tip, if you want stuff to look like GW paints, when you paint them all on, they have a satin finish to them, so you probably want a satin varnish. Pretty much just some recommendations if you're going to ask me what I really like to paint with. Just going quickly, top of my head. Off the top of my head, I'm going Vallejo Game Color or Model Color Black. Both great options. This is like the best black out there. I love this black. I use it every day. Just get it. It's worth it. It's like under $3 for a pot of it. It's fantastic. For whites, I really like Bold Titanium White from Pro Acryl. I understand it's a very white. It's like the whitest white out there. It's one of them. I understand if it's too white. You can really get away with a lot of different whites. Just stay away from Corax White, which is from GW. That is the worst paint ever. Don't touch it. just get anything else besides that. Other of my favorite colors that I cannot live without, corn red and Mephiston red. They're amazing colors. Those are both from GW. Bronze from Pro Acryl, I use it all the time. It's great metallic. Any of metallic colors from Vallejo metallic range, they look like this. These are incredible colors. They have amazing coverage and they're very nice off the brush. And finally, I would say the rose spectrum from Vallejo, which is brown rose, dark rose, the rose spectrum from Vallejo, which is dark rose, brown rose, salmon rose. There's a few of them here. These are the Caucasian lighter skin tone range. I love this. I mix this all the time. These are the colors I use all the time for skin tones. I really like them and I use them all the time. Anyway, wanted to keep this one kind of short at least. There's a ton to talk about with paint. Check out any of these videos I'm showing here right now. These are basically all in-depth things about products, which just are better, what people prefer. There's so much to talk about with paint. It's insane. I just kind of want to do a very broad intro. Mainly just stick to get what you need to paint what you need in front of you. You know what I mean? Don't buy a ton of extra stuff. I have pots of paint that I've never touched before and I never will. So anyway, catch you guys next one. Bye.